You know the feeling. We've all been there. You're wrestling with some problem, you're totally stuck, and then bam, the solution just pops into your head, clear as day. It feels kind of like magic, right? But what's actually going on inside our brains during that flash of brilliance? Well, let's break down the science behind that aha moment. The classic story, of course, takes us way back to ancient Greece with the genius Archimedes. The king had given him a puzzle: figure out if his new crown was pure gold, but without damaging it. Archimedes was stumped. So he goes to a public bath, and as he steps in, he watches the water level rise. And in that instant, it hits him. The volume of the water that was displaced had to be equal to the volume of his own body. He could use that exact same method to figure out the crown's volume and its density. Legend has it he was so thrilled he just leaped out and ran through the streets, completely naked, mind you, shouting, "Eureka!" And that eureka feeling? Well, it actually has a name: the eureka effect. Researchers have figured out there are 4 key things that make it so unique. First, it's sudden. The answer just appears from nowhere. Second, once you see the solution, it feels incredibly simple and obvious. Third, you get this huge rush of positive emotion. And finally, you have this unshakable feeling that the answer is absolutely 100% correct. Now, to really appreciate just how special this kind of sudden insight is, we need to see how different it is from the way we traditionally thought about learning. For a really long time, the main idea was that learning was just, well, something that happens to you. This slide really lays out the difference perfectly. On one side, you have the old school model, behaviorism. It saw the student as basically a passive container. Think of it like an empty bucket, and the teacher's job is to just pour information in. This leads to what's called surface learning. Yeah, you might memorize the facts, but you don't really get the meaning behind them. But the modern view, constructivism, says no, we are active learners. We build our own understanding by connecting new ideas to what we already know. And that deep learning, that active hunt for meaning, is the perfect breeding ground for insight. So the first real scientific deep dive into insight, believe it or not, didn't start with people in a lab. It started with some really clever chimpanzees who were trying to solve a classic problem. How do I get that delicious snack that's just out of my reach? Okay, picture this. It's the early 1900s, and a Gestalt psychologist named Wolfgang Kohler sets up a puzzle for a chimp named Sultan. There's a banana hanging from the ceiling, way too high to reach, and a few boxes are lying around. At first, Sultan tries jumping for it, fails, and then kind of gives up and sulks in the corner. But then, all of a sudden, something clicks. He gets up, walks over, purposefully stacks the boxes on top of each other, climbs his new tower, and grabs the banana. This wasn't just random trial and error. It was a sudden, insightful solution. And just to make sure this wasn't some one-off fluke, Kohler gave Sultan another challenge. This time, the banana was outside his cage, and inside were 2 sticks. Neither one was long enough on its own. After getting frustrated for a bit, Sultan has another aha moment. He realizes he can fit the 2 sticks together to make one long tool, and he uses it to rake in his prize. So, by watching Sultan, Kohler, and other researchers realized that insight actually follows a pattern. First, you identify the problem. Then, there's often this incubation period, where you might not even be actively thinking about it, but your brain is still churning away in the background. You're still focused on the goal, and then boom, the insight happens. A new connection is made, and you see the solution. Watching apes stack boxes is one thing, but it all leads to the big question, right? If we could actually peel back the skull and look inside a human brain right at that moment of discovery, what would we see? Well, thanks to amazing tools like EEG and fMRI, neuroscientists have done pretty much exactly that. They've captured the brain's signature of an aha moment. So let's see what they found. This right here, this is it. This is the brain's signature for eureka. In the tiny fraction of a second, right before someone realizes they've solved a puzzle through insight, their brain lets out this sudden burst of high-frequency electrical signals called gamma waves. You can see it right there on the slide as that huge yellow spike. That is the flash of insight made visible. So where in the brain is this flash coming from? Well, by combining the super precise timing of an EEG with the pinpoint location accuracy of an fMRI, scientists tracked it down. It's coming from a tiny patch of brain tissue in your right temporal lobe, just above your right ear. This spot, the anterior superior temporal gyrus, is all about making connections between seemingly unrelated ideas, which is exactly what an insight is. But this is where it gets really wild. Just before that gamma burst of insight, something else happens. There's a surge of slower alpha waves over the visual part of the brain, at the back of your head. Alpha waves are linked with, well, with quieting things down. In other words, your brain basically blinks its internal eye. It quiets down the noise from your vision so that a fainter, new idea from your right hemisphere can finally be heard. Okay, so we've looked at the history and we've looked at the neuroscience. So what's the big takeaway? It's this. While an aha moment feels like it comes out of the blue, it is anything but random. It only happens when the conditions are just right. The great scientist Louis Pasteur just nailed it. Insight isn't about getting lucky. It's about getting your mind into a state where these connections are even possible. And now, science can show us exactly what that prepared mind looks like. Okay, this is absolutely mind-blowing. Neuroscientists found they could actually predict how you were going to solve a problem before you even saw it. The yellow spots on this brain scan show what your brain looks like right before you have an insight. It's more relaxed, with broad, diffuse attention. The blue shows the brain state before an analytical, step-by-step solution, much more focused on the visual centers. So your mental state going in can completely change your approach. So what does this all mean for us? It means we can actually cultivate insight. It's helped along by that inwardly directed attention, that brain blink we were just talking about. This is exactly why your best ideas often pop up when you're in the shower or out for a walk when your mind is relaxed and just wandering. And get this, studies show that being in a good mood actually boosts activity in the parts of your brain that control attention, making you way more likely to spot those distant connections. So less anxiety and a calm, positive mindset can literally make you more creative. So, we're left with this really powerful idea. Insight isn't some magical gift. It's a real neurological process that we can actually influence. By understanding the science behind it, we can start to create more of our own aha moments. The next time you're stuck, don't just stare at the problem harder. Step away, relax your mind, get into a good mood, and let your brain do its thing. Remember the power of a prepared mind. Your next great idea might be just one brain blink away.